Hello there, welcome back to another Cloud with Chris weekly vlog. You're with me, Chris Reddington, and here we talk about all things cloud. Now, thank you folks for joining. This is weekly vlog number 35. So, hope you're all safe and well. Hope you've been having a lovely bank holiday weekend. If you're based here in the UK, of course, if you're further afield, I've been working today. Here in the UK, we've had a public holiday today, so it's been a long weekend for us. So, hopefully people have been enjoying that. So you know the deal. This week we've got one of the weekly vlogs, so we'll be doing the more traditional updates. So we'll be going through the Azure blog, the Azure Updates, Azure DevOps blog, Github blog, and the Cloud with Chris updates as well. So grab some snacks, grab some drinks, sit back, relax, and listen in as we talk about what's going on this week. So first off then, let's kick off with the Azure blog. So the first one, actually there's not been a lot on the Azure blog this week. There's been one post, and this post is all about 5 reasons to attend the Azure Data Governance digital event. So showing the latest capabilities of Azure Purview if you are thinking about your data governance strategy. So they talk all about the reasons there. So turbocharging your data governance strategy, hearing major project announcements, see Azure Purview in action, get insights and best practices from product insiders, and get answers to your data governance questions. So that event is coming up on the 28th of September. That's going to be 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. Pacific time. So again, if you're more focused on the data space and you're looking at your data governance strategy, data lineage, etc., worth taking a look at that. And good evening, Andrew. Yes, little chilly now for Sunday, Monday, agreed. But good evening. Hope you've had a good weekend. Next up then, let's go ahead and check the Azure Updates here. So Azure Updates this week, we have quite a few actually. So I'll do my normal thing, take a swig of water, and we'll rattle right through these here. Okay, so first up then, from last week, Windows 11 Public Preview is now available on Azure Virtual Desktop. Azure expands high trust certification across 51 Azure regions. Public Preview applies settings inside machines using Azure Policies guest configuration. That one is a big one. It's actually got a lot of interest from where I've been sharing it over on Twitter, actually. Some interest on LinkedIn as well. But a lot of people particularly liking that update, so definitely recommend checking that out. Thinking of things like desired state configuration and being able to use Azure Policy to help you apply settings inside the machine. Really, really awesome stuff there. Azure AD B2C redirect URL. So if you are using the login.microsoftonline.com URL in B2C, you may know that it's actually, there's a newer version, I suppose, b2clogin.com. The older login.microsoftonline.com URL in B2C will be retired on the 31st of August 2022. So do be aware of that if you're using B2C. You may have seen Facundo Larroca's recent session on that. So again, if you're interested in B2C and have started playing with it, be aware of that one. Basic and standard A-series VMs will retire on the 31st of August 2024. So the recommendation there is to migrate your Azure workloads to AV2 series VMs. Community support for PHP 7.3 is ending on the 6th of December 2021, and the recommendation is to upgrade to PHP 7.4 before the 6th of December 2021. So that's only a few months away, so you want to get moving along with that one. Azure Data Factory Compute Optimized Data Flows will be retired on 31st of August 2024. Transition from Compute Optimized Data Flows to General Purpose Data Flows by the 31st of August 2024. Cloud Services Classic Deployment Model is retiring on 31st of August 2024. So, of course, the recommendation there is to go to the new deployment model for Cloud Services. Machine Learning Studio Classic will retire on 31st of August 2024. And, of course, migrate to the new Azure Machine Learning. And you can see a theme with a lot of these updates. This is why I'm just being very particular reading these out. So the recommendation, the next one, is transition to new work item integration in Application Insights by the 31st of August 2022. So that is almost a year away here. The classic work item integration inside of App Insights is going to be retired, so you need to transition to the new functionality by about a year's time here. Java 7 will be retired from App Service on 29th of July 2022, so the recommendation is to transition to Java 11 or 8 by the 29th of July 2022, so you've got less than a year for that. Community support for Azure Database PostgreSQL version 10 ends on the 10th of November 2022, so upgrade your Azure Database for PostgreSQL from version 10 to version 11. The ND series Azure VMs will be retired on 31st of August 2022, so you should transition to the new HPC virtual machines by the 31st of August next year. Multi-step web tests will be retired on the 31st of August 2024, and in fact I believe it was Visual Studio 2019, if I remember rightly, was the last Visual Studio version that had the web test functionality exactly. So given it's been deprecated in that, Application Insights team are retiring multi-step web tests by 2024 there. So transition to custom availability tests by that point. Next up, retiring version Async 2.x of the Azure Cosmos DB Java SDK on the 31st of August 2024. So recommendation is to upgrade to the SDK 4.x version rather than 2.x by 2024. Hard-coded IP address for Azure Site Recovery will be retired on the 31st of August 2024. General availability of Azure Sphere OS version 21.08. So we've got one update which is not a deprecation notice or a retirement notice here, but then the next one, Azure Synapse Analytics Compute Optimized Data Flows, will be retired on the 31st of August 2024. Azure Functions support for Python 3.6 is ending on the 30th of September 2022. Function app support for Python 3.6 is ending. We recommend you upgrade to Python 3.8. Azure Function support for Node 8 is ending on the 28th of February 2022. We recommend you upgrade to Node 14. General availability, new Azure Batch capabilities. And finally, general availability of Azure ExpressRoute, new ExpressRoute peering locations available. And let's check out, excuse me, hiccup there, where those locations are. So we have Chicago 2, we have Pune, and we have Seoul 2 as well. So lots of updates there, lots of deprecation notices. So I think over the course of 2021, 2022 and 2024, I think were the dates I saw predominantly. Some August, some Julys, some Septembers in there. February 2022 for the Node one as well. So there's a lot of upcoming deprecations. So especially if you're in the app dev space, definitely make sure you're on top of your dependencies, as there were quite a few dependency version shifts recommended for changing there as well. So they can always creep up, so do be careful of those. Right, next up, let's move on to the Azure DevOps blog. So 2 updates this week on the Azure DevOps blog. One is with Jay Gordon, of course, the Azure Fun Bites episodes, and this is an introduction to GraphQL with at Adron from Hasara HQ, and this is all about, as you can imagine, GraphQL and implementing APIs using this kind of graph query language. I'll be honest, my experience is more on REST APIs, so I need to do my own deeper digging into GraphQL and understanding it in a bit more depth, but that's going to be an episode I'm going to go and watch to make sure I get my head around it all. So if you've been aware of GraphQL and you want to do a bit more digging with it as well, definitely worth taking a look at that, because they talk about GraphQL, getting to know it, what it is, data mutations, data sources, and how you start one of these local GraphQL servers as well. And always some great content coming out on the Fun Bites episodes as well. So thank you both Jay and Adron Hall for that one. And then finally, on the DevOps community side of things, Jason Perez has an episode here on DevOps for shipping libraries. Kevin Chant talks about Azure Test Plans example for Azure Synapse Analytics. Richard Fennell does a session on what is Azure DevOps. Vinicius Moura talks about how to test plans configurations mappings on Azure DevOps. Johnny Grabber talks about multiple backlogs in the same Azure DevOps project. And I believe that is it in terms of the Azure DevOps updates this week. So there we go. We are now on to GitHub. And good evening, cloud management community. Thank you for joining. Hope you are well. Right, next up, GitHub Blog. We have, first off, the NPM registry is deprecating TLS 1 and TLS 1.1. So 1.0, I should say, 1.1. So the recommendation there is to use 1.2 or higher. And I believe when I read this earlier in the week, yes, they say that unfortunately 99% of the traffic to NPM registry is already using TLS 1.2. And they expect a majority of users won't be affected. But of course, I'm sure you're aware across the industry the sweeping changes that are happening with TLS and modernizing which TLS versions you're using, of course. So this is just another step in that direction. So do be aware of that if you are connecting to the NPM registry at all. The dates for that, by the way, is October the 4th, 2021. So you do want to get onto that one sharpish. Yes, do go ahead and get on with that. Right, next up then, we've got the GitHub CLI 2.0. So you've probably used GitHub CLI in the past. It's a really snazzy piece of functionality there. I'm a fan of it. I still need to do more with it, if I'm honest, but I do like the power that it can bring. There is a 2.0 version of the GitHub CLI. And the main story behind this one, actually, which is really great, is the ability for creating your own extensions there as well, and being able to bring in and just have this extensibility really to the CLI. I think it's something when you think about the Azure CLI and the way the extension model works there, you can install them after the fact. Works really well. And great to see GitHub doing something similar as well. Even to the extent non-serious ones, you can see there's a GH screensaver here, which looks like the old, I guess, Windows Pipes kind of logo screensaver, if I remember rightly. So again, you can see here some good, interesting extensions there. And then there were a few different blog posts from GitHub all about free and open source Linux games, because of course, if you didn't know, Linux is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, and they give, I think, in these 3 different blog posts, they talk about 30 different games which have been made for Linux here. So I think it's 10 in each blog post. So there's one blog post. We'll come back to this one in a minute. Here's the second one. Free Orion, for example, is one here. NetHack, Stunt Rally, Red Eclipse 2, Free CTV, Endless Sky, Pixel Wheels, etc., etc. You get the idea. There's plenty of great open source Linux games that have been made. So again, if you're looking for something fun to go and contribute to, here's some great examples, especially if you're interested in the gaming space here as well. Now let's just jump back for a moment to the this post here. So the 2021 transparency reports, January to June. So what they're doing with these transparency reports now is they are going to be doing them, I think they said every 6 months from here on in, because they want to try and share the transparency as much as they possibly can and make sure they're giving this in bite-sized chunks. What they talk about is things that have been requested of them, aligning with their acceptable use policies, DMCAs, all of these kind of things. Not typically something that I talk about on the channel, to be quite honest, but I know there are folks who will be interested in this type of thing. So they talk about, takedown notices, they talk about requests to remove or block content, and a local law and the terms of service, etc., etc. And they have lots of stats and information all about this. We're not going to go into it, of course, right now. But again, if it's useful to you, if this is the type of thing you need, maybe from a data security perspective or just a security because you leverage GitHub in some way, it's all up there for you. Encourage you to take a look at that. Right, and that is GitHub done. So let's move on to Cloud with Chris for the week. Of course, last week started off with the weekly vlog. That was weekly vlog number 34, and we did some gaming. It was a long gaming stint last week. We played Sea of Thieves. I made sure that the stream took longer than it needed to because I may have had a very important item that we needed for one of our quests, and just blasé ran down a hill, got attacked, and got destroyed. So there we go, doubled the length of the stream. So you can thank me later for great content, of course, that is available on YouTube. I am, of course, going ahead and cutting down the podcast audio rather than you having to listen to 3 hours or so worth of gaming and finding the content that you want in between all of that. You are just getting the kind of weekly updates, if you like. Something I'd love to hear, actually, if you are listening to these weekly updates at all, is do you find them useful? Do you find them valuable? Because something I'm starting to look at, and I'm going to be putting some more feelers out on Twitter, is how I evolve my content over the next year. I want to focus on a regular live streaming slot as well. That is something I have an ambition to do. I want to have, I've mentioned it in the past, a segment which is all about kind of building with and doing some live development or live creating of some sort. And to do that, basically, I need to cut something. I can't keep going with the level of content that I'm keeping going with. I think the weekly vlogs I see maybe less traction compared with some of my other content and less engagement. But that doesn't mean, of course, it's not valuable to the folks who listen. So that is always helpful for me to understand. So do drop me messages, do drop comments if this is useful, because it will just help influence where I go. Right, in terms of content for the week, first off, on Wednesday, released a very important episode, actually, one that I really enjoyed recording, one that I really learned a lot from, and that was with Kaizata, and he talks all about his experiences being hard of hearing and deaf, effectively. He has cochlear implants, and talks about his experiences with effectively having to go to conferences, day-to-day life, and helping us understand, I should say, what that is like on a day-to-day basis, and how we as content creators, as public speakers, people in the world who do talks, etc., can do more to include that audience. I talk in that episode a bit, actually, about how I also have my own kind of audio processing disorders. So if I am out and about, for example, if I'm in a bar setting or a club, I really struggle, particularly if I'm tired. And you may notice, if you've met me in person, many of you won't have, but if you ever do, in those scenarios I do struggle a bit because my brain can't focus on the background noise compared with the sound. And likewise, what was interesting about what Kai was saying is he has a similar aspect to that as well, where something from a conference scenario, right? We always have background music, we have this really energizing stuff going on. But if you're hard of hearing, if you have hearing aids, if you have cochlear implants, or some other treatments to help from accessibility perspective, it's challenging. You can't decipher between someone speaking with you and that background noise of the music, etc. It was just eye-opening to go and listen and understand and just empathize with what the journey Kai has been through. And makes me want to do more when I do my public speaking. So I've already been thinking about when things get back to normal, how can I do more? I haven't quite cracked it yet, but certainly is something very top of mind for me, and how I can make sure closed captions are front and center as much as I can. The bit where I struggle actually is going to be with demos. So that's something that I'm going to be thinking about, because PowerPoints, you've got the built-in capabilities, so that's not a problem. But when I switch out to do demos, etc., that's the one I'm thinking about how I solve for. So if you've got any thoughts, give me a shout. I think this is certainly a community thing that we can start rallying around and making sure we all have a duty to play in that. So that was Wednesday's episode. On Thursday then, I wrote a blog post all about why you should care about Azure Front Door Standard and Premium. So if you haven't used Azure Front Door, I talk a bit about what Azure Front Door is, some of the capabilities from a layer 7 load balancing perspective, the SSL offloading, the fact it's a global service and that you've got these entry points across the globe, talk a bit about the difference between Front Door and its dynamic capabilities versus CDN and its static capabilities, then talk about the differences between Azure Front Door Classic and Azure Front Door Standard and Premium as well. So that one, as I say, was out on Thursday. So if you're interested in Front Door, check that out. And then also what happened on Thursday was I did another meetup group event virtually. It was the August 2021 MC2MC evening, and that was a lot of fun. Had a great crowd there, some great questions and great engagement. Lots of interest in the blogging space and getting started with Hugo and static websites, which I always love because I'm sure you know by now I'm a super big fan of that. So really great to see the engagement there. So thank you folks for having me. Had a great time, and if there's interest, always happy to talk. I guess we talked about GitHub, but always happy to talk about my static site journey as well. And just jumping over onto the chat for a moment here, just to catch up what's going on. So live creation would be good. Vlogs could be integrated into dev stuff. Yep, that's a great point. I suspect Dean is behind that one. So great point, Dean. Thank you. Maybe a regular spot, the Azure Updates short brief, then maybe a deep dive or a focus session on a particular stack. However you would like to do it, really. I use subtitles where I can, as often I'm struggling to hear or catch specific keywords. For example, tech. Do find subtitles easier. Narrator as well. Completely agree. I've actually started doing that on videos as well to make sure I keep up to date. Enjoy subs most of the time. Think you do what you can. Cool. Excellent. I'm all caught up. Great. Thank you, folks, for the discussion there. So, yes, we did the meetup group on Thursday. And then on Friday, had a great session that I've had in my pocket for a couple of weeks now. Recorded this with Martin a few weeks ago, but was just trying to find the right point to get this one scheduled in. And Martin and I talk about getting into DevRel. Of course, it's something I'm passionate about with the type of work that I do here. The type of things that I'm doing for the day job as well, the type of work that I'm doing all over the place, I guess, and building developer communities like with Azure Thames Valley and all these different things. And we talk about what skills you need to kind of grow, to think about building your own technical communities, and really making sure you know what it is that you want to get out of it. This is something I've actually taken in some of my mentoring discussions where I'm mentoring and coaching a few others who want to go on that journey. And I really ground that basis, when people ask me, hey, I love what you're doing with Cloud with Chris. I want to be able to do the same. How do I start? What are your tips? And the first thing I start with is exactly what Martin and I talked about. And it's something I'm a big believer of anyway, is what are you looking to get out of it? What is the reason you're starting along that journey? Is it purely to help others? In which case, that's awesome. Is it purely to help yourself and drive your own career goals? In which case, that's absolutely awesome. That's absolutely fine. That's no lesser than the other reason. Is it to document what you do so when you forget something, you can go back and look at your own historical record? Is it to learn out in the open because you can learn from others and meet other people? Those, quite frankly, are a bundle of the reasons why I do it. And making sure you're grounded in the why you want to do it is so important for when you've got decisions and existential crisis like I was on about earlier, of figuring out where I want to focus my content, where I want to take it, where I want to go, and just making sure that you can make sure you're getting something out of it as well. Because like anything, if you're going to put energy into it, you want to make sure that you're getting something back from it and it's giving you that energy and giving you that drive to keep on going. You don't want it to kind of stop throw away to the side, and then all that hard work that you've put into it just dissipates and disappears. Make sure that you're getting something out of it. Check in. It's okay to take a break and take a pause and make sure that you're happy with what you're doing. So, gone on a bit of rant on the sideways here, but something I'm super passionate about. Definitely take a listen and a watch of that episode with Martin and I, where we go into way more depth about building those communities and thinking about what you get out of these types of things as well. Of course, in between then, this is Monday today. We are on weekly vlog number 35, but I've also released a blog post today as well. And this is part of my new... It was going to be like a 2022 change of format, but it's something that I'm going to drip feed in and start trying to edge my way into. And this is thinking about the different types of content that I'm putting out there. And something that I put on Twitter recently was the fact that I struggle to write content which is very targeted, very specific, and solving a point problem, if that makes sense. A lot of mine have a bit of narrative behind it, have a bit of a story, which is fine. It's great. It's the style of content that leans to me well and suits me well. But I'm conscious there's more that I can give in the, hey, you've got this problem, you want to do this thing, here's how you go and do it kind of scenario. So what I'm going to try and do across a lot of the weeks is have one shorter blog post, which is more of that, hey, here's your point problem, here's how you solve it. And then later in the week, have more of that narrative style kind of blog post. So we'll see how it goes. Like anything, bit of an experiment. If you like it, drop me a note, because it helps me know I'm on the right course and people are liking that type of stuff. Or I go back, or maybe I drop a blog post a week or something. But feedback's always welcome. So what I've done in this blog post today is talking all about how you can shift left and increase your code quality with GitHub branch protection rules. So branch protection rules are basically a way for you to enforce on certain branches in your GitHub repositories. The certain standards need to be followed. The certain processes need to be followed. So, for example, you can't go and commit directly into your master branch. You have to go ahead, regardless of who you are, whether you're an admin, whoever you are, you have to go and have a pull request into that branch. And more importantly, if you have a pull request, you can't actually go and approve your own pull request as well. So it has to be reviewed by at least one other person, if not more, depending upon the configuration that you set. Even things like signing your commits, etc., which is really important for open source projects, depending upon the license that you've actually got associated with the project. But ultimately, I just walk through then how to set up these branch protection rules. Again, before doing that, talking a bit about the why this is important, then talk about the how you go and do that, and a bit of my own experience using these as well. So some of the ones I typically use, why I use them, and some of the trade-offs that you need to think about. So for example, I showcase actually a bit further down in this blog post. Here are some of the examples that you can set. So requiring pull requests before merging, status checks, conversations to be resolved before merging, etc., which is all well and good. But from a Cloud with Chris scenario, it's just me who works on my content, right? So who else would review my pull requests? Well, no one, because it's a team of me. I am the team. And of course, I'm sure I could have community contributors come in and review, but that would slow down the process. I've got checks and balances already in place, so for my scenario, it doesn't quite fit. But in a scenario where you've got a development team who are all going to be pushing code into the production code base, you need to guarantee that certain procedures, certain workflows are being followed, and at a minimum, having a branch protection rules in place to make sure pull requests are in place so people can peer review, that certain checks can be put in place, etc., is a really, really great start. And what I'm going to do in the future is I'm going to have another post about how you can use GitHub Actions then on top of that to go and do your unit test or integration tests, for example. And I'm also going to talk about the same thing in Azure DevOps as well in a separate blog post. But this is, as I say, more of a pointed, here is the problem, here's the fix kind of scenario. Here is a way to approach it, I suppose, rather than that longer narrative-driven blog post there. So hopefully that is useful there. Then this week, what we've got coming up on Wednesday is another episode of Cloud Gaming. So we had a break for a month, but we are back, and we are going to be talking about game streaming and cloud-powered gaming. So we're not talking about game streaming like live streaming. We've talked about live streaming and esports in the past, but this is game streaming like, think about, I've got my mobile phone and I am streaming from my data center, from the cloud somewhere, a running version of that game onto that device. We talk a bit about the business behind it and why it actually makes sense both to I guess the providers who provide that type of technology and that service, the game creators, what's in it for them, and how it benefits us as individuals who play those games as well, and talking about some of the technology that potentially is behind that as well. So great session as always. Lee Williams there joining us, so go ahead, check that one out on Wednesday. And on Friday, so we're going to be recording this one this week, but we're going to have Ivo coming along and joining us, talking about how they've gone ahead and leveraged Azure as a telco provider. So that's going to be a particularly interesting one from the Tales from the Real World session. So we haven't recorded that one yet, so that's going to be done this week. But I'm looking forward to that because I'll be honest, the whole telco space is an industry that I'm not so familiar with. So I'm just really intrigued, given some of the recent announcements with the Azure blogs, etc., with 5G, Internet of Things, and these kind of local networks, if you like, with these cellular devices. That's not quite where I was going, but with Internet of Things and thinking of these cellular networks that you can get and integrate with the cloud, just what they've actually done there and how they've gone and used cloud to enable what they do. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And then, of course, gotta mention it, just in case there is anyone listening in after the fact, live right now, coming up on Sunday, September the 5th. So that is going to be, less than a week away now. We have got another Among Us stream. So that is going to be a monthly rhythm that we do. And that will be carried forward, by the way. Some form of community gaming type session as I move forward and change how the weekly vlogs work. And I will be going with the weekly vlogs until the end of the year, by the way. So hopefully that is the plan anyway. I will keep those going. But then these cloud gaming community pieces will be interdispersed throughout that. So, long story short, if you want to play Among Us, if you want to come along, talk about cloud, learn cloud, come along and join us. The more, the merrier. I was delighted earlier to have someone reach out on Twitter after I retweeted or quoted it and just shared on again, who messaged saying that they're still learning cloud. They, not necessarily feel like they'll be a main contributor into that, but they want to be able to join in the discussion. They want to be able to learn, and they want to be able to play and meet some of the community, and that is exactly the intent behind this. So please do come along. If you want to join, drop me a DM on Twitter, and I can make sure you're invited to the Discord server, because I think we have about 7 spaces left now. So do let me know, because that one's going to be a bit of fun as always. And otherwise, that is it for the week. I say that as it, there's quite a lot going on. There will, of course, hopefully be another blog post coming out this week. And I'm not quite sure on what yet, to be quite honest. It's going to be one of those longer ones. So we will see. Any suggestions or thoughts, let me know. But otherwise, I think that is it for this one. So let's just check the chat here. Oh, Cloud is in person. Got it. Cloud could review. Got it. Thanks, Dean. Cool. So that is weekly vlog number 35 here, folks. So you know the deal. If you have liked what you have heard today or what you have seen, please do go ahead. Please drop a like. Please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell no matter what platform you are on. There's probably a way you can show your love, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Even if you consume on cloudwithchris.com, you read the blogs, drop me a tweet. I always love seeing those random notes of, hey, read your blog post, was really helpful, or it's, have you thought about this, have you thought about this? Love those discussions and would love to see more of those. So please get in touch as always. And with that, once again, hope you've had a great bank holiday weekend. It's been a 3-day weekend for me. Got to go back to work tomorrow, which is always a struggle after long weekends, but hey ho, got to be done. So with that, folks, thank you for watching or tuning in or listening, however you are. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and till next one, with a few more friends, of course. Bye for now.